Hi, it's Clive Manley at Maximum Fitness. I'm just going to talk to you a little bit about abdominal training and give you a few pointers as to the right things to do the right way. So to work your abs, most people are under the apprehension they've got to do hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of sit-ups. It's not going to work. So you've got to look at your abs constructively like a muscle group, and we're going to divide them into three ways of doing it, which is one, which is working your hip flexors. Hip flexors where we're bringing the hips upwards, so some type of leg raise. We're going to look at doing some type of flexion on the spine, which is a crunching movement, which is pulling the upper body downwards. And we're going to look at doing a combination movement, which is stabilising the pelvis and doing the crunch at the same time, which is like doing a sit-up. And also, to top it off, we'll look at doing a couple of static moves, which is an isometric abdominal exercise, and we do 2 of those. So that's a brief pointer. We're now going to follow through a few exercises. See you in a minute. Right, so we're going to start now with the basic of leg raising exercises, which is just doing leg raises on the floor. Right. So you just lie back. Now, one thing you want to try and do is you're going to try to lean forward a little bit to keep your back flat on the floor. It's quite important in this exercise not to put strain on the back, and that will happen if you allow the back to come up, your head's back too far. So lean forward slightly, point your toes so that the 2 joint hip flexors are working properly with the 1 joint hip flexors, right? And we're just going to lift up. Stretch down, touch the floor gently, lift. Right. So as long as your back's flat on the floor, that's the movement you want. And you'll be doing sets of 15 to 20. Okay, that's the basic exercise. We're going to move on now to doing the same exercise on the bench, which allows you for slightly bigger range of motion. Okay, so now on the second part of leg raises, this is on the bench, so that just gives you a greater range of motion, so it's 1 step up, if you like, from on the floor. So same thing again. If you're holding to keep your body still, you're going to have to lean forward to make sure that your back is flat. That's really important. Exactly the same thing, toes pointed, knees very slightly flexed, and then pull. Pull. And just with this way, we've got a slightly bigger range of motion, so the legs can go down slightly lower than you can on the floor, so you're just getting slightly more effort. Right. If it's hard, if you're just starting off, bend your knees and just pull your knees into your chest. The important component is always keep your back flat on the bench. Okay, we've done 2 of the basic movements. Now we're going to do the one which is the king of the leg raises, which is hanging. If you do the hanging, if you can avoid it, don't use the ones where you have your straps, where you're locked in position, because with those you don't get the full function of the serratus and intercostal muscles that are working well with a normal hanging leg raise. So hanging leg raises, get yourself hanging from a bar. If you haven't got the grip to sustain a long hold on there for 30 seconds or so, then use straps. Right? But keep yourself in this position. The arms are just an attachment, so you don't want to do any of the pulling. Right? So we start with the basic way, which is keeping your toes pointed as always on the leg raises, and just pulling knees up into the chest. Right? Basic leg raise. If you go too fast or too slow, you start pendulating. So the idea is just keep a gentle flow all the way through. Okay, from the basic one, we can progress from there, which is straight legs, lifting up right in front of you. Same speed, toes pointed. Right? And from there, you've got the top of the range, which is feet onto the bar. So that's a little bit hard and a bit of a challenge for most people. So a couple of starters. Lift up. Okay, so that's all your leg raises sorted out. We'll get on to the sit-ups next. Right, okay, just on to basic sit-ups. We're going to start on the floor again. Right, so we want to try to just stabilise the feet. We can do it the same way with just the feet unstabilised, but you're just going to be using more of a crunch on that one. So we're going to try and get the hip flexors working a bit more. So that's stabilising the feet so you can pull with the muscles of the lower part of your tummy and the hip flexors. Right. Same thing again on here. We've got to make sure the back stays flat all the time we're pulling up. The danger is pulling up
with an arch in your back, you'll be asking for a back problem. Alright? Instead of getting good abs. So pull chin down and pull forward first with your chin. First with your chin. First with your chin. First with your chin. Okay. Basic setup. Okay. Whilst we're down here, we're going to go into the variation which is crunching. Turn the mat around that way. So I'm crunching. What we're looking to do is not just actually sit up by using the hip flexors and elevating the spine and the pelvis, but we just want to flex the spine, the trunk. So it's just flexing forward. And with all these exercises, you can hear me breathing, right? My mouth is wide open. What you don't want to do is be puffing air out. So none of that, right? Open your mouth wide, let the air go in fully, and let the air go out fully and easily. Okay, basic crunch. There you go. Okay, the first of the exercises, what we're going to do is an isometric hold. It's called the plank. So I'm going to turn over on your elbows. For the girls who are very weak, you're just going to plank from your knees. Alright, so if you're new to this, just plank from your knees. The important thing is, don't do this. Try and just tip your pelvis forward so you keep in that position. Right, if you get a little bit stronger, you'll be able to plank from your toes and hold that position. And as you get a little bit stronger still, you can start to put some weight on top of you. So. Lovely. Oh, just what we needed. Thanks, Carl. And if that's not enough, the next stage you get somebody to stand on top of you. But that works fine for me. Thanks.
Okay, the second of the static movements, isometric, is just a static raise. So what we want to do is hands behind your head, feet out in front, make sure you lean forward, toes pointed, back flat on the floor. All we're going to do is just keep the feet slightly above the floor. Dependent on how strong your abs are, you can tell how good you're going to be on this is when your back starts to raise from the floor. So at the moment, I'm fine, I've been doing this a long time, so it's not a problem, but if you're just starting, it may well be that your back starts to lift around about this position. This will be your static raise. Alright, so just make sure your back stays flat down. And hold that position. Normally 20 seconds. Okay, there you go. That's your static raise. Okay, so now we're going to just go into conventional sit-up on the machine. So it uses the hip flexors because it has to elevate the spine and the pelvis. And also we're going to try a crunch with it, which flexes the spine downwards at the same time. Right? One of the things with all the sit-ups and the leg raises, we're going to keep the spine flexed, right, when you're pulling up. So first of all, we're going to get in a position which we can actually pull right in fully. I think we need to move this up just a little bit. Okay, that's good. So I can pull myself nice and tight. Hands behind the head. Okay, so for me, that's a good crunch and a sit-up. So if you can't pull yourself up all the way, just partially, whatever comes up. So the first part of the movement is a crunch, which is involved in the abdominal muscles. The second part of the movement, where you're lifting the spine up, that's your hip flexors that's flexed in the spine. Right? Okay, that's the basic sit-up. Okay, so we've covered all the basic movements. You've done the leg raises variations, you've done the sit-ups, you've done the crunches and the static raises. If you're beginning, a couple of sets of 15 of 2 of those. So one exercise where you're lifting up the leg raises, so 2 sets of 15 on the variation that suits you, where your starting point. and a couple of sets of sit-ups or crunches. So some movement where you're flexing the spine forward. There again, 2 sets of 15 or 20 or so, and that's plenty. Intermediate levels, you can then go to 3 sets, and you can start supersetting, which means doing 1 set immediately followed by the other. So you might keep your reps to 15 again, but you've got 2 lots of 15, which makes 1 set. There again, 3 or 4 sets of that superset. Right, and for those people that are a little bit advanced, we're going to go through one series of supersets, which is a tricep, which is 3 exercises together, or in this case, we're going to do 4, which we're going to do a leg raise, a powerful leg raise with straight legs. We're going to do a good crunch, we're going to do a static raise, and we're going to do a plank. Right, so we've got 4 exercises altogether. So with that type of sequence, 2 or 3 sets of that entire sequence will be plenty. So we'll start first off. First 20. So static raise, now it's a plank, 20 seconds. Lovely, that's 1 set. So we normally have a short rest for 30 seconds to a minute, and then straight back on for another 3 or 4 circuits. That's a great abdominal workout.